Allianz. I'm going to get into more of that later on, but in a nutshell, it allows your clients to lock in the credits at any point in time during the contract anniversary year. So if the index is up 10% halfway through the year and they're comfortable with that, lock it in regardless of what happens to the performance of that index the rest of the year. Allianz is going to credit them that 10%. It's differential in the marketplace, and only Allianz is the carrier that offers that currently. We have a couple of different bonus opportunities, 4 bonus opportunities to be exact. One of them is a flat guaranteed bonus that can give your clients 90 basis points guaranteed, regardless of what happens to the index. And then we do have one as high as 40% multiplier as well. We have some innovative features when it comes to our loan flexibility. We have a 5% contractual index loan, and I think that's very competitive. 5% contractual means it can never go above 5%. It can go down. Some of our competitors, they do offer index or variable type loans, whatever you want to call it in the industry, but they're not guaranteed. Those rates can go as high as 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12%. And with rising interest rates, it may be something to consider on that. And then we have living advantages. Basically, we have our chronic illness rider and terminal illness rider that's included on our policy. The good news is that even in the state of California, the chronic illness rider is approved. So that is something to always consider. It is included, no upfront cost. The cost comes off the back end, off the death benefit, depending on how long the policy's been in force, how much cash, time of claim, etc. But it is nice to have that kind of cherry on top for your clients to have a little bit of peace of mind. So when we look at Allianz, you know, one of the things that we do is we do hedging. We do hedging really well, and we do hedging internally. Now, some of you may be asking, what is hedging? It's just a way that insurance companies and really other companies just transfer risk or help reduce risk. I like to think of it, I'm a big sports fan, and I love to go to Las Vegas every once in a while, and the Golden State Warriors just won the NBA championship. So I could come and say, hey, I'm gonna bet you $100 that Golden State repeats as champions next year. But then I could go to another person and say, hey, Bill, I'm gonna bet you $100 that my Minnesota Timberwolves win the championship next year. What have I done? I've hedged, right, in a sense. I've hedged my bet, in a sense. Really, that's what hedging is. But Allianz is unique to it because we do the hedging internally. So from a Allianz investment management standpoint, we actually hedge about 152, needs to be updated, about $152 billion for all of our global companies. That's Allianz Life, and that's Allianz SE, and that's our offices in Australia, Italy, you name it, all across the country, or all across the world, excuse me. $152 billion is what our Allianz investment management team is responsible for on the 3rd floor of Minneapolis, Minnesota. They do the hedging for the entire company around the world on that. And why that's important is because we do a thing called dynamic hedging. We're buying and trading options up to 100 times a day. Where all other companies, they do what's called static. They do it like once a month. It's like a tranche that builds up, and then they take that money, and then they go to an investment banker and say, okay, I have the cash flow available, now I need to go buy the options on that. We do all of it in trading, partly because of the revenue that's being traded and the revenue that Allianz has on that. Why is that important? Because if you think about that, there's a cost. There's a cost to bringing in a third party, AKA an investment banker, to buy those options. Not only is there a cost to it, there's a risk associated with that as well. Who remembers 2008? Financial meltdown, right? Mm-hmm. Anybody remember one of the largest investment banks that collapsed?
AIG.
Lehman Brothers.
Lehman Brothers.
Investment bank.
Bank.
Option buying. Right? Because we do the trading in-house, we remove that risk We remove that cost to the client. See, even though the client doesn't see it, but the cost comes somewhere, right? That investment banker's got to get paid. And usually that markup is anywhere between 10 to 25 basis points or something of that sort. So what that has done for our clients is, since we've got into this industry in 2006 from an index standpoint, we've saved clients over $2 billion. Over $2 billion is what we've saved by basically eliminating an investment banker and doing the hedging internally. What does that mean for your clients? Higher cap rates, higher participation rates, better products, or better product, because we have one product on the portfolio right now. And that was actually just shown on June 7th. Anybody remember what happened on June 7th, besides me turning 42 that day?
My son turned 30.
Great day. We announced rate increases. So on some of our index options, our participation rate is 184%. On our bonus options, they're as high as 160.
Oh,
Even if you take a look at our bread and butter index, the S&P 500, we increased that annual point-to-point cap to 10.25.
wow.
We increased our fixed account to 4.5%. Because that's what we're basically getting on our general portfolio, so we have the capability to basically share that with our clients. The good news is that we didn't do that just for new business, because any company can do that and say, hey, we're gonna raise all these rates just to buy new business, in a sense, right? Get business in the door. But what about the business on the books, the existing companies? How many of you have done business with companies in the past where those par rates and those cap rates have decreased? Probably a handful. The good news is in July, our in-force business is going to get those same rate increases.
Oh,
So we take care of the customers, right, going forward on that. But I think that's important for you all to know that's how much savings what we're able to do. When it comes to the indexing, Allianz has kind of been the trailblazer. There's a lot of companies that try to replicate us and copy us, which is the most flattering thing that we can take, right? Copy by example. So in 2005, we introduced the monthly crediting sum option that was on the S&P 500. 2008, we actually introduced a blended strategy. In 2013, the trigger method, which is on the S&P 500, and I can get into that in a little bit more detail because it's actually an interesting index option. 2014, how many of you have heard the term being tossed around, VCI, volatility controlled indexes? Well, a lot of carriers are now getting acclimated and bringing these on, or these index options to the table on their portfolio. We created it. We've been doing it since 2014. Two of the ones that we have currently are our PIMCO and our Bloomberg option. So we've always been a step ahead of the game on some of these things. So as carriers catch up, we're going to be on to the next bigger and best thing on that. In 2019, we introduced the index lock feature on the life side of the portfolio. And in 2021, we introduced the auto lock feature, which basically means you can go in and set an upper tier target threshold, kind of like a crock pot. If the index ever hits that threshold, it'll lock it in automatically, set it and forget it, and you don't have to worry about it. Then it resets annually on the next anniversary. So innovative things that are unique to Allianz that no other carrier in the marketplace can offer right now, and that's partly because of the hedging aspect that we do internally. So who does our product fit? So as I mentioned, we have one product on our life portfolio, and that's our IUL. It's an accumulation-focused IUL, meaning our sweet spot is going to be for those individuals who are looking to put the most amount of money into the policy, lowest amount of death benefit possible to keep it under that MEC standpoint, to maximize on the greatest cash value accumulation into the policy. So while you're thinking about some of the things that I'm talking about today, think about clients that are 60 years of age and under, that have enough money to be able to put in, but have that time frame, what we like to call 15 years before we say, Jerry Maguire, show me the money. It could be contribute for 10, let it cook for 5, then take out. These are long-term investment plays. Okay, so target market, those individuals that need coverage. It could be younger families, right, that just got married, just bought their first house, had their first kid or kid. Those individuals that want to buy the insurance rather than rent it via maybe a term chassis. And also those individuals that want to diversify their portfolio, right? Money can only go into 3 different buckets. They can go into a taxable, they can go into a tax deferred, or they can go into a tax-free bucket. Right, and unfortunately in California, we have a pretty high state income tax the way it is anyway. So continuing to put money, whether if it's in a tax deferred or even a taxable account, where capital gains taxes are 23.8%, and they could go even higher. Take a look at that diversification bucket on the tax-free. My favorite acronym ever in the industry, what we call Henry's, high earners, not rich yet. Right? So these could be your individuals that are maybe your doctors, your dentists, your lawyers that have gotten just out of college and they're starting their career, where they're making 6 figures on that, but they don't consider themselves wealthy because they don't have that net worth established yet. Or it could be for those affluent individuals that maybe make too much money and they can't contribute to a Roth IRA because of the IRS guidelines that are imposed. Or they've maxed out their 401k, 403b, whatever qualified plans that they have. We have our affluent individuals, so these may be your more tenured type doctors and dentists that have had the practice for a while. Your executives, which we're going to get to with the small businesses. All of you in the room here, right? Would be probably great fits for including an IUL, hopefully with Allianz, inside of your portfolio.
Some of us are over 60 though.
Some of you are over 60, but that's okay because it can still be an okay play even for wealth transfer type purposes, even though it's not designed necessarily for that, like the lowest premium for the highest amount of death benefit. But I always say cash value inside of a life insurance policy is always going to be king and queen because of flexibility, right? There's at times where situations change. There could be a premature death of the individual or individuals that we thought we were going to leave assets to. There could be changes in the estate taxes, which we've already seen and are going to see again come 2026. So think of these individuals.
Can you mention that?
Yeah, so right now the lifetime state exemption is, call it 24 million for a married couple and 12 million for an individual. In 2026, that is scheduled to sunset back to 12 million for a couple and 6 million for an individual. Meaning that if assets inside of the estate, life insurance included, anything above that, the beneficiaries are subject to estate taxes at 40%, and they have 9 months to pay that debt to the IRS on that. And there's been even more talk about possibly lowering that exemption possibly down to $1 million, and also even looking at, including cap gains tax on that, taking that all the way up to 40% as well. So great opportunity for those of you that have CPAs and estate planning attorneys in your network to start to have those conversations. And again, why cash value instead of life insurance is always positive in my eyes. Flexible estate plans. Irrevocable doesn't mean inflexible, right? So just remember that. Our transition boomers. So about these clients that may be over 60 that have assets on the sideline or money on the sideline that might be earmarked for someone or something, right? Charities and causes, kids, grandkids, etc. That has money on the sideline that we can leverage from day one, right? That's the beauty about life insurance, is that we put $1 in today, that immediately comes tens of thousands of dollars, right? So these individuals that maybe have 5 to 10 years before they reach for that unicorn called retirement, that can put money into an IUL, have it grow from a tax deferred standpoint, access the money if need be, tax-free via loans and withdrawals, but still have that little nest egg on the side for the beneficiaries of their choice. And where I think the biggest opportunity is small business owners. Small business owners and their executives. How many of you have small business owners as clients? A few? How many of you have tried to tap into that market space?
Yeah.
So utilizing life insurance as key strategies for that is one of the ways that you can actually work a little bit more deeply with those business owners. Our product fits really well for that because it is an accumulation focus. And it can be really great for the owners to attract and retain key personnel, whether that's done via traditional executive bonus plans, Section 162, if it's split dollar arrangements, if it's REBAs, if it's phantom stock options. All these types of strategies are available inside the small business market, where you can do some amazing things from a planning perspective. And we see a lot of our policies actually come in that are done on small business owners on that. And so just know that you have a resource in myself. You obviously have a resource with True Choice. And then we have a dedicated advanced markets area as well that you all have access to. Dave Foster heads up that. He is great, and we can always get him on Zoom, WebEx to run through these options and these strategies in more detail if you have particular clients that you're looking at. But executive bonus plans, it's one of the easiest things to do. It's a way for the owner to basically discriminate and violate the ERISA guidelines, because they can pick and choose who they want to participate. They don't have to open it up to everybody like they would if they opened up a retirement plan, right? And a lot of owners don't want to open up a retirement plan because of the cost. And some owners, they just don't feel all their employees are worthy of having a retirement plan. So this is a nice opportunity where we can actually do some unique planning with them. And that also includes buy, sell, and just traditional key person insurance as well. I know sometimes people, when they think of buy, sell agreements, a lot of times the first thing is to go to term insurance, because it's easy and it doesn't cost very much. But with term insurance, is it a liability or an asset? So it's a liability. It's a liability because there's no cash inside a term, right? The only benefit is if that owner of that key person dies. Well, that's not an asset. That's a yeah, to the business, right? So cash value inside a life insurance policy is an asset to the books of the business, right? And you can do some amazing things with that cash value, even when those owners eventually want to exit the business and sell off into the sunset. You can also do some amazing things with the cash value for those individuals that they take out key person policies for. Transfer of ownership, maybe that key person is going to buy into the business, etc. So you can utilize tactics for that. So great opportunity for that in the small business market there. So one of the things that we always have to remember first is that with life insurance, it's the tax-free death benefit, right? That's always there. And sometimes I think we lose focus of that with all the living benefits and even the cash value that's inside the policies. It's always the death benefit first. And then hopefully the clients are around long enough to reap the benefits of those living benefits, whether that's the cash value, terminal illness riders, chronic illness riders, critical illness riders, if they're available. But sometimes we forget about how important that death benefit can actually be for the surviving spouse, the kids, the grandkids, etc. So I just always make sure that we hit that, because sometimes clients are like, I get my first annual statement or I get my annual statement, I paid this amount of money, but why do I only have this much cash growth? Well, we got to remember, right, there's this really large number off to the side, which is creating some of those costs on that, which no other asset provides, right? You can't get that in a stock, you can't get it in a mutual fund, or even in a 401k or 403b or anything of that sort. So, if we take a look at Allianz, one of the words I like to use is optionality and flexibility. So if we look at the index options, if you include our fixed account, we have 5 investment choices. Our first 2 are our volatility controlled index options, the Bloomberg US Dynamic Balance ER Index and the PIMCO Tactical Balance ER Index. These are our 2 most popular index choices. A, because they're actively managed from a volatility standpoint, but 2, this is where our index lock feature is available. So these 2 index choices is where the clients have the option to utilize the lock feature inside the policy. The great news about these is we see about 80 to 85% of our policyholders go into one or both of these options. And partly because, again, actively managed, so we can ratchet up the equity exposure on a daily basis based upon what's going on in real time from a volatility standpoint. How many of you knew that Allianz owns PIMCO? PIMCO. Yeah. So PIMCO, one of the largest fixed trading organizations basically in the world, right down in Newport Beach area.
Wow.
So that's part of the Allianz company. So inside of that PIMCO Tactical Balance, it has a unique overlay component. It has a bond overlay component. So when interest rates rise, what's usually the effect on bonds? Down, right? Inverse relationship. So with the bond component, we can actually shift the assets out of bonds into cash. So we don't experience that inverse negativity in a sense. 2008, what did the S&P 500 return? Or not return, I should say. Negative 37, negative 38%. So if we were to backcast our PIMCO index allocation during 2008, anybody have an idea of what the average credit the policyholder would have got?
I do know that in 2008 October, PIMCO got a 1.3% growth on one day and earned $129 billion in one day.
It's a good memory. I didn't know that.
You weren't born yet.
Anybody have an idea on the return or on the credit?
No.
Over 9%.
Wow.
So think of that. When the world is falling down
9%.
and we are unknown what tomorrow is gonna bring, a positive, almost double-digit return your clients would have saw.
Wow. That's why we can give bonuses.
That's the power and the strength that Allianz brings to the table from their volatility standpoint and their actively managed portfolios on that. We do have a blended index option, as you can see up here. It consists of the Dow Jones, the Bloomberg, the Euro, and the Russell. We see about 7 to 8% of individuals go into this, like 100%. But we see a little bit more from a diversification standpoint, where they might do 35, and then like 25 in the blended. S&P 500, that's the bread and butter, vanilla, 10 and a quarter cap from an annual point-to-point standpoint. On the monthly sum option, 3.9% is the cap on that. So if the S&P is ever up in any given month, there'll be a cap on that at 3.9%. Trigger method is at 7.75 on the S&P 500. And so what we do is we take a snapshot of what that S&P 500 is today, on their client's contract anniversary, what the S&P 500 is on the next contract anniversary date. And if there's a positive return, we're gonna credit 7.75. So the S&P only has to increase by 0.01% for the client to get a credit of over 7% on that. Can be an attractive option on that. And then again, our fixed account earning 4.5%. So the beauty is that your clients don't have to go all in on one investment option or one index selection. Diversification is what we preach at Allianz, and diversification is probably what you all preach to your clients as well when it comes to investment standpoint. So we're a firm believer because we don't have a magic 8 ball that actually works. We say diversify, put a little in some of these different index options there. And then depending on which index option, that will determine what your bonus eligibility is. So our standard option is no bonus. This is just gonna give your clients higher caps and higher participation rates on that. And so that participation rate is 184% on the PIMCO and the Bloomberg investment option. For those clients that want a guaranteed bonus, regardless if that index credit is 0. I think the mic died.
Oh, no battery?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So if your clients want a guaranteed bonus of 90 basis points, the classic is gonna give them that, it's contractually guaranteed. So even if the index returns 0, worst case scenario, they're gonna get 90 basis points credited to their policy. For those that are looking for a little bit more bonus opportunity, our select and our bonus option has a participation rate of 160%. So if the index returns 10 and they're in that bonus option, they're gonna get 15%, and then plus whatever their participation rate is as well. So if you go on our website, we actually have a great tool that will explain which bonus option might be beneficial for some clientele, depending on their risk tolerance and what their strength is inside the marketplace. Our select does have a 1% asset fee that comes out of the cash value on an annual basis. Oh, perfect, thank you. So this slide kind of highlights what we just covered here. It looks busy, but it's really not. So as you can see, the S&P 500 option over here, you can see that there's no bonus options, right? And then our blended, our PIMCO, and our Bloomberg all have the bonus options available on that. So choose an index or indices, and then choose a bonus or bonuses. So you could have basically 16 different investment options for your client with multiple different bonus options as well. And this is something that myself can help go through if you have a particular case or internal sales team as well. We can help kind of run through these. Index lock, again, innovative and game-changing to the industry. Only carrier that offers your clients the availability to lock in a credit at any point in time during the contract anniversary year. Doesn't matter if they've had the policy 1 day or 364 days, they have the availability to lock in that credit. We actually had a client whose anniversary took place in February of this year. And they decided to lock in at about 10.01 in October of last year. Had they waited and just played the game throughout their contract anniversary in February, they would have got 0. Because that's how much volatility struck and brought all those indices down. So we love to say this gives the clients the opportunity to lock in gains and lock out volatility on that. Here's an example of what it looks like. So index started at 100. Halfway through the year, let's just call it, index went to 108. Client was comfortable with that return, right? Because from an illustration standpoint, we can run at 6.6%. That's the highest. We can always run that lower. but that's what we're allowed to per AG 49. They were comfortable with an 8% credit. Well, good thing they did, because at the end of the contract year, that index actually dropped to 102. But now on the contract anniversary reset, where do you think their index value starts at? The 108 where they locked it, or the 102? The 102. They lock it in. Just because they locked, they're not being punished for locking in the game. So now they get to participate in the upside of what that ending index value was at 102. So clients get to have their cake and they get to eat it too. And we all know a lot of people love cake, right? But with everything good, there may be, I don't want to use the word bad, but there may be a situation where it wasn't advantageous or as advantageous. So in this particular year, client decided to lock in at 108, but the actual ending index value went to 110. So they missed out on the 2% upside on that, because if had they would have waited and played the game, they would have locked in at a 10% rather than an 8%. But having been 16 years in the industry, it's usually like an escalator, right? From a market growth standpoint. But in the blink of an eye, it can all go south real quick. So we don't necessarily tell your clients they have to lock. It's just a feature that's built in, no additional cost to them. And then this is the auto lock feature, where you can actually go in and set that threshold, that upper threshold. And so, because I'm a little bit aggressive when it comes to investing, I might say, hey, if the index ever hits 12, I'm okay with that. Double-digit returns, who doesn't like double-digit returns, right? So now what happens is if that index ever crosses that threshold, it's gonna automatically lock that in. You don't have to do anything as an agent. Client doesn't have to do anything. Now they're good as gold for the rest of the year. And then next contract anniversary, they can go in and either keep this rate the same, or if they're like, hey, I'm feeling pretty confident that that good things are gonna happen, maybe they bump that 12 up to 15. So they can always change that number on that. And they can always bring that number down too. So, and we help from a marketing standpoint. So on the second and fourth Monday of each month, Allianz runs reports. And for your clients that have lock opportunities of 8% or more, we're gonna notify you. Just as a heads up. Not saying that, again, that the clients have to lock, but that's a great call to your clients, especially in volatile times. Hey, we're at positive. We got positive arbitrage right now. This might be an opportunity where we can lock in, So we help from a marketing standpoint on that. And when you log into to your account at Allianz, you can actually see all your index lock opportunities as well on the bottom there. It'll always run a report, and it'll show you exactly which policy and what that lock opportunity is as well. And it locks in at the end of the business day. So whatever the ending trading value is, just know that if you looked at it at, say, 10 o'clock Pacific time, and it's at 12%, by the end of the trading day, it might fluctuate a little bit up, might fluctuate a little bit down. Traditionally, it doesn't usually go much more than 0.5% on that. Living benefits, so as I mentioned in the beginning, we do have our terminal illness rider and chronic illness rider attached to our policy. Chronic illness, no upfront cost, right? Triggering events, 2 of the 6 ADLs, or cognitive impairment, Alzheimer's, dementia, ALS, etc. Clients able to access the death benefit. It's up to $1 million that they can access. Again, it'll all depend on how long the policy's in place, how much cash value, time of claim, etc. I like to use the analogy that it's kind of there as an emergency. If you got to break the glass to get the axe to get out of the burning house, we got the availability to get to it. Our terminal illness rider is a little bit different than some of the carriers. We actually allow the client to get up to 100% of the death benefit.
Wow.
And that's if they're deemed terminally ill, so 12 months or less to live by a licensed practitioner. There is a fee, just like any other terminal illness rider, to activate that. Usually it's around $500 or so, but just know it's 100% available for the client,
Wow.
which is a nice benefit. Most carriers are 40, 50, or 60% on that. At least all the ones that I've worked with in the past there. So one of the things on the far right you'll see is our premium deposit fund. So how many of you have clients that are bad with money? Meaning they have a spending problem. I can actually raise my hand and say that is myself as well. Right? They get a commission check, or they get an inheritance, or professional athletes, right? They get a signing bonus, and it's like, it's gone, right? So we can actually take that lump sum of money, put it into our premium deposit rider, which is crediting 2%. And what we can do is we can space that premium out then over 3 years, no greater than 10 years. And what that does, it takes the money off of your client's hand, who's bad with money, credit them 2%, but what it does, it allows us to not mech the policy. So we don't lose all the privileges of the cash value when we're taking it out via loans and withdrawals. We're still able to access that money tax-free on that. So if you have somebody that say has $100,000, we put it in the premium deposit rider. We want to space that 100,000 out over 10 years. Traditionally, it would be 10,000 a year for 10 years, but because they're going to have 2% credit on that, that premium is going to be about 10,200 or so, give or take. So it's actually more money going into the policy over the long term as well. 3 years minimum from a payout standpoint, no greater than 10, but it does have that flexibility in there. We do have our rider, our term rider blend that we can add in, and we can get that from like a death benefit standpoint. So if death benefit is a concern for clients, and a lot of times it is, we can actually blend in some term to help keep those costs down, which will do two things. A, give the client the death benefit amount that they're looking for, but B, because we're adding a term blend to it, it reduces the COI charges, which means there's usually higher cash accumulation then in the long run of the policy. And unlike traditional term, where it's 10, 15, 20, 30 years and it's gone, right? This can stay on for the life of the policy. Clients have the option to drop it off if they want, but just know that it can stay on for the life of the policy on that. And then our loan features, as I mentioned, very flexible in the industry. 5% contractual guaranteed from an index loan standpoint. Can't go up, can go down, but 5%. That index loan option, the benefit of that obviously is on the borrowed money, they participate in the index crediting on that. So if the index returns 7, 5%, they're gonna actually have 2% arbitrage on that.
Jacob, what about the supplemental term? This is also included in the living benefits, terminal and?
Yes, yes, the term is actually included in the chronic illness in the terminal.
Thank you.
Even term?
So,
Wow.
So
even if the interest rate's down, it's still gonna be 5%. Like for example, it goes down to like 2 or 3%, still gonna be 5%.
So we can lower it, but we can never go higher than 5. So it
Yeah,
could
that's
potentially,
the point.
the interest rate could potentially go down to 2, right?
Mhm.
If we wanted to, and let's just say that index returns 7, now they're gonna have 5% that would be credited on that loan value from a positive arbitrage standpoint. You can have multiple loan buckets. So in 1 year you could do an index loan, on the next year you could do a fixed loan, which is basically our wash loan on that. So it's zero charge on that. You could blend it. You could do 50 and 50. And just also know we don't limit the number of loan transfers that the client does, and we don't limit the investment options. So there's some carriers that says, hey, you can do a variable loan or a participating loan, but you have to go into these index allocation options. it's open architecture for the client. So flexibility, this is one of the things that I think, as we see these increasing interest rates, it might be something where you may want to consider asking those carriers that maybe you are writing with, what can that loan rate go to on that? That number, I would encourage you to write it down if you don't have it. That's to our life